I want to welcome Tim Wood of Alliance Gold to the show. Tim Wood, belt historian, member of the other Alliance Guys podcast. Tim, how's it going?
It's going fantastic, Rick. I'm super excited to be here with you. I've been going through, if you've seen new likes on your YouTube page recently, Jacques Rougeau, Wrecking Ball Legursky, I'm getting through them one at a time. So got a bit of a backlog, and I love what you do here.
Thank you. I very much appreciate that. I've been working hard to bring quality content over quantity, really. So,
I apologize.
We have a visitor. All right, there you go. It's not the only time that's happened, so that's cool. Yeah. So, Tim, tell me a little bit about your background and the your interest in professional wrestling. I always love hearing everybody's story because it's just a blast, really, to discover how people got into it.
Yeah, man. I'm from Toronto, Canada. I live about an hour just outside of it now. So when I was growing up, WWF had just taken over from the NWA at Maple Leaf Gardens. So we had seen a few shows of the NWA, and the only match I could ever remember going to see as a kid in the NWA was Ric Flair versus Wahoo, and
wow.
I was pretty young. But we grew up, in a WWF town, as I say. It's so weird to say WWF, isn't it? It's strange to say that.
The funny thing is, I still say that,
do you?
Regularly. Yeah, I catch myself sometimes.
Yeah. My parents weren't into it, but the first thing I remember for enjoying pro wrestling was we had this old lady who lived a couple doors over. She was like an extra grandma to us, and my sister and I used to go over and knock on her doors and get free cookies. And I can remember her standing, I'm maybe 7, 8 years old, in her living room, and she was watching Al Tomko's All-Star Wrestling, which was an NWA West Coast Vancouver affiliate. Yep. And the first match I ever remember seeing anyway was Bruiser Brody versus Abdullah the Butcher. And I don't know what this says about me, but Abdullah stabbed a fork in Bruiser's head, and I was hooked. So I'm like, what is this? How can this possibly be on television? That's how I got into wrestling. I just became an instant fan, and then it was all Hulkamania, and it turns out I went to the same high school as Rowdy Roddy Piper in Toronto, and that stuff like that just kind of fueled the love for pro wrestling. And then I met a friend of mine at 13. I guess we started high school or junior high or something about then, who said, you gotta get back into the NWA. And he had a satellite dish and he had tapes. He was a tape trader. And I just fell in love, and there was no looking back with the Apter mags, and WWF could not compare to NWA for me. The stories, the wrestling, the quality, So I've been a lifelong fan ever since I was a kid.
Same here. So it's been roughly 40 years, I guess you could say. And it's funny because I live in WWF territory. I live probably 40 minutes from Stamford.
Right.
And so everybody, WWF was king, of course, in that time period. And but it was once I discovered the NWA, it was all over. It was, to me, it's it didn't look like a cartoon. It looked more realistic. People used realistic sounding names. The matches looked more brutal, I guess you could say, and more legit.
That's 100% it. I mean, when you got away from the characters that the WWF were all about and got into, like you say, it was almost the plausibility of the NWA. Right. Even when I figured out it wasn't anything more than what it is.
Right.
When I was young, and I thought the whole thing was a shoot. I still, it just made the legitimacy, the plausibility of the NWA so much better for me than any other product.
Were you so when you mentioned the first thing you saw was Abby and Bruiser?
Yeah.
Did that influence your style of wrestling that you preferred? I know everybody's got a style that they prefer.
It's funny because those two guys are obviously big, bruisers, big beefy boys. But honestly, hoss fights are not my favorite.
Okay.
It was the the Dean Malenkos, the Benoits, not a name I care to bring up too often, but the scientific technical guys were the guys that I just, wow, this is incredible. You know, when you're watching the scientific holds and the chain wrestling and right up through my teens, like if I were watching WCW and there was a cruiserweight match, which just owned that era for them for such a long time. Dean Malenko was in that match.
Yep.
You know?
Yep.
Yeah. It was really the technical stuff that I loved the best.
Same here. I prefer traditional style of professional wrestling, technical wrestling over, because I will sit there at the edge of my seat if it's done properly. You know what I mean? As opposed to watching people gouge each other with forks or ladders and all that stuff. You know, it's more enjoyable. So, especially
nowadays, like it's just been around so long and it's gotten so ridiculously over the top. The extreme and hardcore rules. You know, every match seems to have a table or a chair, and you know, back in the good old days, I'm in my 50s, so
I'm not too far off. I'm a few years away. So
there you go. I mean, when it was infrequent, and it seemed to mean more, you know.
Yeah.
Like, and it just kind of felt like wrestling with the extreme rule stuff. I mean, I was never interested in somebody hitting each other with light tubes and, you know, and barbed wire matches and all that stuff. Unless it was, you know, a long time ago, Terry Funk's in Japan, that type of thing, and was just crazy. Yeah.
I think that there was, like a brief period, but then it just became too normal in professional wrestling for me to just not care. And now, you know, if you remember the era that we grew up in, people would be disqualified for using a weapon of any sort. And now, I think with thanks to, I think, a group like ECW, that it just became normal for people to just, you know, pull it out from anywhere. And so it's kind of upsetting in a way that I feel like we can never go back, or it just depends on the match that you're watching that, you know, however it's booked, then they'll decide to disqualify somebody out of nowhere or something to that effect. It's kind of, we're living in a weird era. You know what I mean? Influenced by, you know, the late 1990s, early 2000s. It's just very bizarre to, you know, think about it. We basically have no rules unless they set rules for that particular match.
Which is why, you know, Ring of Honor, I always thought was the ground zero for what could have been, and hey, who knows, maybe still could be, the change, like trying to fit the genie back into the bottle. Maybe it can't be done. But if there was a promotion that was coming along, maybe that's the NWA, I don't know, that said, we have rules, we're going to enforce them, whether that's small things like hand-to-hand tags or you got to hold the tag rope. You know, if you're in the ring, I'm going to boot you out. Stuff that, you know, you can work the story around, traditional stuff. And if someone slides in with a chair, there's a DQ. You know, like I feel like there's a market for a company to do that. And just, you know, amongst my friends, I often talk about the John Wick movies. Like I love the John Wick movies, but everything is more insane than the last one before it, right? There has to be 400 explosions this time because there was 300 last time. Like, if you sold me a product that just gave me one in a match and built from there, I felt like I would be drawn into that if we went back to that ground zero.
Right. And that's what I thought we were going to get with the NWA, but I guess that depends on the week, you know. Speaking of which, I know that you and I have discussed this prior online about the current situation of the NWA. I've done episodes about it. You guys have spoken extensively about it on your show. And, well, it's a very confusing product currently. So it's as much as I love it, and there's times I want to turn away, there are times I definitely turn it off, especially if our little friend Gags the Gimp shows up on TV, which I've explained that. Yeah. But, you know, there's times where I think that this past week's episode was probably of Power. It's probably one of the best ones I've seen in a very long time. It wasn't, I didn't turn it off. I stayed there for the entire 60 minutes and watched it, and I enjoyed it for the most part.
Yeah, and that's a rarity, I think is what you're saying, right? Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. By today's standards, I think, and I know that we've discussed this, and Jake Hell has said that he's basically, Billy, being him, is booking for himself and anything that he wants to see.
Right.
So,
I got away from wrestling in my late 20s. Like anything else, you just kind of move on after a while. And I liked girls, and I liked working, and I like other sports. So, and you get married, you have kids, and you just don't have time for some stuff.
Right. Yep.
What drew me back in was actually the same friend who, I was talking about the tape trader and the satellite dish. The same guy texted me online and said, the Rock and Roll Express just won the NWA World Tag Team titles. And I went, get the out of here. I'll edit myself. And I turned it back on. And what Mr. Corgan was preaching was respect, tradition, legacy. And I thought, we're going to be creating, we're going to be part of a fan base. I say we a lot. I'll just cut myself off because I'm invested into the NWA still.
Same. Yep.
So when I say that, I mean them, but us, including as the fan base. We were going to be creating a product that was traditional wrestling based. We were going to see, the four horsemen of today, right? They weren't going to be called that. They were going to be strictly business or what have you, because that's a
correct. Yep.
We were going to see NWA rules, probably from the Crockett era, but maybe we could have bits of, Florida or the West Coast or like LA if you go back that far, whatever it might be, and bring these real, more realistic, real talents in and showcase them. And I feel like while that's sometimes the focus, it's so scattered. It's like light through a prism sometimes. Like, here's what we're going to feed you, and what comes out the other side of the booking is a lot of Impact and WWE style storylines and characters and nonsense. And when we criticize it on the show, and Jay and DKM and Jaden on the Alliance guys, I think even more so.
Yeah.
They've been doing that for 16 years, so we'll let them have it. It's out of a place of, we want it to be better, and we respect the talent who are doing it. The guy under the Gags the Gimp mask is a very good wrestler, but it's things like his character that I just can't abide by more than you can, man. Like, it's just it's too far out there for me.
Like I said, I think what was it 2 weeks ago when I was on the Alliance guys as a guest, and I think that basically I stated, like you just did, that they're basically going in the direction of sports entertainment, and the NWA has always been I don't want to say company, but a governing body that really focused on professional wrestling part of professional wrestling.
Right.
When the so the fact that they're going in the sports entertainment direction with gimmicks like that, and it's just very frustrating for lifelong NWA fans. You know what I mean? I've kept up with the NWA even after the Crockett era, through the weird eras that they've had where it wasn't they didn't have television, or the TNA version, or era, or what have you. So it's very hard to swallow something like that going down in the sports entertainment direction.
Wrestling fans, promoters, wrestlers, and anyone who enjoys pro wrestling now have something new to be excited about. The Wrestling Fans International Association, the WFIA, is back. WFIA is an association that exists to promote, grow, and support professional wrestling throughout the world. Membership is free. Your membership includes a free digital bi-monthly publication of the Wrestling Fan News newsletter, association updates, voting privileges, and much more. Please go to thewfia.org, that's THEWFIA.org, and become a member today.
Yeah, and it just seems like the wrong path overall.
Yes.
So if I live in a town that has a AAA ball club, which I often equate the NWA to in terms of baseball, the wrestling.
Right.
why would I try to imitate the juggernaut of professional? No, I shouldn't say professional wrestling. I should say sports entertainment by making sports entertainment that can't possibly be as good as they are.
Right.
They don't have the budget. They don't have, the setup, the fan base to do this. Why wouldn't you focus on what it is your strengths were and always have been since 1948? Like, it's just, it doesn't make any sense to me. I often think that if I owned the NWA, I'd hire a booker, and because I wouldn't be able to do it, I would just be junior to that person in decision making with my own ideas.
Do you know who that booker would be?
Oh, that's a question.
Yeah. I've had ideas. So, because I've had that same discussion with people. And one person really comes to mind in my mind. And it's just an obvious choice. It would be one Mr. Jim Cornette.
Yeah, but he'd never come. Like after what happened with the bucket on the back of the motorcycle joke and how he was asked to apologize and gave the old, F you to everybody. And he wouldn't come. He doesn't even talk about it on his podcast, right?
Well, no, I don't think he talks. I mean, he makes fun of AEW and talks, his time in OVW. I mean, at least the previous episode that I just checked out.
Right.
He doesn't talk about, much else, really.
But that is the obvious pick. You're right. If he ever wanted to leave his house, that would be. You'd have to be getting
paid a lot of money to leave Kentucky.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, and I think my mind immediately went to Gabe Sapolsky, but I think he's with WWE right now.
Currently, yes, he is. Yep.
Yeah. So I mean, I don't know. There's probably all kinds of. What's his name? Cornette loves him. From Ring of Honor. I'm going to look it up while we talk.
not Kerry Silken, the owner, the previous owner.
No, not Kerry Silken.
No.
Right now.
Yeah, I'm not sure who you might be referring to.
Anyway, carry on. I will continue to answer.
Yeah. No, yeah. I'm just trying to think as well. But so how did you decide to start, get into belts and belt collecting and creating a website and the biographies and basically becoming a belt historian for the NWA? What drew you to that?
I will answer that. The name I was thinking of was Delirious from Ring of Honor.
Yes. Now I remember. Yeah.
Yep. Yeah. I could not think of the name. So for the belts, yes. So in January 2020, I had a heart attack. And it was a bit of a wasn't a bit of it's life-changing. I do not recommend. 0 stars on Yelp. Don't have one. So I was at home actually only 2 weeks, but before I was back to work. But I was pretty sedentary following the heart attack for a long period of time. And I just started clicking around in my easy chair and my laptop. And I noticed that you could get, when I was looking at NWA belts, I don't remember why I originally started looking them up, but you can get photos in one place. You can get all over the place. You can get amazing title histories from the great Hisa over at Pro Wrestling Title Histories. That's an incredible site. And you can obviously find snippets from, guys like Cornette and other wrestlers about interesting things that happened during title changes in other places. There wasn't really one site where you could put them all together. Mm-hmm. So I started collecting first just little snippets with photos in the beginning and kind of putting them up on my Facebook page that I created and saying, hey, did you guys know that, Manuel Sabala Jr., the guy who created the 10 pounds of gold, was also the guy who created the crown belt, the NWA crown belt that preceded it. People would go, wow, that's awesome. So I would put all that stuff together, and it just kind of started to steamroll. And so I started adding more and more belts, more and more info. And the next thing I knew, I had two people reach out to me. The first was the owner and champion of the NWA British Commonwealth Championship right here. That's a cheap replica. He still has the original. That's Drew Onyx, who was he's a former NWA North American champion as well.
Did he work for Wildside at all? Did he come into Wildside?
No, I don't think so.
No? Okay.
I hope he doesn't watch this and go, "No, Tim, I was in Wildside." No, I don't believe so.
I just remember him be like, a bunch of years back. That name I just heard a lot. So yeah.
He actually became a promoter for NWA Quebec.
Okay.
And he worked in UK Hammerlock and a bunch of other places. Well, he did a couple of anniversary shows at the, down in the States. But he ended up developing this title, and he reached out to me and said, "Hey, I like what you've written on other stuff. Would you like the inside scoop on this belt?" So, he was the first guy that I got on the phone with and was like, wow, an actual talent and a promoter. And he gave me all the stories, all of who made it. It's a Rico Man title, who's a Dave Millican guy.
Mm-hmm.
All of the stories. And then I did all the belts that Drew had promoted over the years. So with like the Canadian Tag Team Championship for the NWA. And so he's half the reason that I really felt, invigorated. Let's make this thing bigger. The other was Jason Cayley, J-Cal.
Yeah.
He reached out to me and said, "Man, I love your stuff. And I really want to have you be part of me, in terms of like bringing the belts into part of the alliance." And I said 100%. So I started posting stuff on his site, and getting on more social media platforms. So within about a year or two, I'd done about 75 different articles on belts and spoken to a number of different promoters and photographers, because now I'm sort of at this stage where I don't want to just take a photo if I can help it, that you might have seen online, like, oh yeah, I know that photo of the belt, everyone's seen it. I want to reach out to the talent who still owns the belt, or the promoter who might have those photos, or the photographer who took it. And I'm still building some of those relationships. But we've managed, I say we, it's just me. I've managed about 75 of them so far. And there's some of them are small and some of them are very long. And I put them bit by bit onto the website. All of them are on the Facebook page right now. And it's just started to kind of grow for there to the point where, I've kind of got myself into a bit of a corner now where I'm stuck for a couple of reasons on not being able to contact people, or frankly, there's some belts that I'm not sure that I should do. What would
be that reason that you shouldn't?
Two. Yeah, there's two. One is that I have a lot of wrestling books, but there are actual great historians, right? Like Dick Bourne, who has all of these books for some of the great ones. Like, why bother doing Big Gold if there is I can just go and read this kind of idea. Like,
I got you. Yeah,
he and Dave Millican went and they physically looked at the 10 pounds of gold and they studied it and they found Kerry Von Erich's initials carved on the plate, and they spoke to Ric Flair and all that stuff. So there's that. If I can't do it as good, then I have to think about how can I do it differently. The other is that there are a lot of belts out of the southern U.S. that, and I've never actually talked about this before, so you're the first out of the southern U.S. that bear the Confederate battle flag.
Right.
And it is a symbol that I oppose as a human being, and I understand the outcry that's against it. And I have a real hard time getting myself to a place where I could feel like I could post photos. Right. So I just don't want to be I don't even want to have that conversation online with people. It doesn't feel winnable.
No,
so that's where I am. Yeah.
I get what you're saying, and I'm going to ask you about one of those belts that you were.
Sure.
I read an article on your website. I was going through it last night, but the Wrestle Birmingham belt, was it the tag team belts? I believe it was.
It is.
Which I've seen a lot of belts in my day. So online, being a wrestling fan for almost 40 years, and I know you put out there that it most likely is created by Adrian Street. I remember when he ran his whatever he did, he made belts and made gear and stuff like that. But it definitely looks like it could be one of his by the design, because he's had some weird looking belts in his shop, I know. And it's just a very unique and weird looking belt. It really is.
It is. From sheer artistic value and the fact that it looks like it's made entirely of leather.
Right.
It's an amazing looking belt.
Yeah.
There are strong hints of the Confederate banner behind it. You can almost. I don't think there actually is a boom. Here's the cross, but it's certainly there. And I had forgotten that one was on the site actually. Hot button issue for a number of people who have gone. About that, yeah.
I get what you're saying, but also you're providing a history of a belt. So
sure.
As much as I oppose the symbol as well.
Yeah.
So in its hatred that it provides, right. I understand there is a history of certain things. There's going to be a time where we come across those things in life in general, I believe. So,
sure. I kind of equated it in my head, and maybe I'm a white male, and I don't know that I am the person who should be speaking to this. Right. But I kind of equate it in a way to the swastika, and if it's that strong to a number of people, I have to respect that. So I think maybe the answer in the end might just be to do the write-up and describe it. Even then, I have people saying, "Well, then why am I looking at your product?" So there's no particular way to win or lose. I either leave it alone or I just do it the way I think is best, and I'll probably do the latter.
What was your favorite belt that you've had to write up about?
For me, just it was probably the British Commonwealth title, because Drew gave me all the cool stories and the inside information, and he's even told me stuff just that I didn't put it in the article. He's either asked me not to, or just like, here's what I think about so and so who had this title. But beyond that, it's a great question. I would say, I had a lot of personal history as a kid with the NWA Canadian Championship out of Toronto. Mm-hmm. I love the NWA TV title. And Jake Cal, if you're watching, the answer is Blackstrap is the best. But
I'm going to agree. As cool as the red one does look, but I'm more familiar with the black over the years. So
I think for me, my favorite title over the years is the 10 pounds of gold. Like, that was the one I fell in love with. But I reached out to the guys who ran NWA Illinois, and they were so great to me, and they said, here's all the photos like nobody's ever seen. So I guess it's hard to pick one, but there's some really interesting belts. There's almost 400 NWA belts that that's
amazing to think about, since 1948, mind you.
Since 1948, and you have to sort of say that if they were an affiliate member, they bought the NWA name for a while during a certain era, that is included in that number.
Right.
Available on all streaming platforms. It's professional wrestling's greatest, largest, privately owned wrestling library. All the classic hits, flips, slams, and pins of yesteryear are on one place. It's Ultimate Classic Wrestling. Check out the Nature Boy Ric Flair, Hulk Hogan, Mr. USA Tony Atlas, Tito Santana, Rick Martel, a who's who of professional wrestling's greatest spotlight stars ever to grace the squared circle, all in one place. Grab the best seat in the house for memories and mayhem on Ultimate Classic Wrestling.
So, of course, you joined the Alliance guys earlier this year, or the other Alliance guys, I should say. You're 1/3 of the other Alliance guys. Now, mind you, I've loved the product that Jake has been putting out for a number of years. I don't think before I started talking to him, I was a fan of his product, and and I've always enjoyed his website. And then obviously you got asked, what was it, late last year or earlier this year that you started doing an additional podcast for his
45 weeks ago this week. We number the episode, so it's almost a year. Yeah.
And I'm always enjoying anything that you guys talk about. I mean, you guys don't only talk about the NWA, you talk about a lot of the United Wrestling Network stuff, which I thoroughly enjoy. I don't know, what do you watch today as far as wrestling goes?
I watch NWA USA because I got to talk about it on our show. Jay gets Power and we get USA. That works really well for me. So I watch Power. And I love the NWA pay-per-views. There's only been a couple that I haven't really enjoyed over the time.
Yeah, I'm going to tell you the last one I thought was a real stinker, but we can be honest here, on our thoughts. I will be, and I think that one of the things is we can go on and on about certain things because one of the things that they keep pushing, and it didn't, I think that, wasn't it Dave that said there was probably like 250 people in the building?
Yeah.
Or something like that. That's Dave Scooby, by the way. He's the 1/3 of the other Alliance guys as well. So one of the things is that they keep, or they meaning Billy, keep pushing the fact that they're selling out buildings and all this stuff. But my thing about this is, and you might have heard me say this before, how can you be proud about that if you're only selling out 250 to 400 seat buildings? I
mean, look, you can look at it this way, and you can be proud of your product, but like you and J Cal could fill that building with people to come in and talk about the National Wrestling Alliance and just sit there, 250 seats to go out. And it happened. So I don't, I used to live in a small town where people would say, hey, did you hear that, or small city, that like Bon Jovi's coming and they sold out, the Labatt Center. I'm like, the Labatt Center has 4,500 seats. Like I could spell that out if I picked up a guitar and, I couldn't, but you know what I mean? Like it's silly.
No, I get you. Yeah.
So, but the thing about 312, and is that NWA 312? Yeah. Whatever the pay-per-view is called, whatever the area code is. The Florida one too, right? Anyway, you've got a small arena. You've got a bad set. Like the lighting wasn't great. The sound wasn't great. Billy Trask is an excellent director. And I just feel when you have a small crowd, it brings me back to an era of the NWA where no one was watching.
Yeah.
If the goal, the 20-year plan that we've all mythically heard about for so long is to continue to grow, that's not the arena you want to be in. What
are we, 7 years into that now? Probably, roughly?
Yeah.
And it's gone down, if you ask me. Because look at the, what was it? If you look at like the 70th anniversary show, that was a rather big building, and they sold a lot of seats.
Yeah.
And now look what what they are now. It's just gone nothing but down.
I agree, although they might be on an upward trend coming out of Mexico and Australia, and I often try to speak hopefully.
Yes,
and I do that because I'm cognizant that I don't want to be a voice for just negativity. I don't want to be someone who goes, I hate this every week, because why am I doing this then? We had somebody watching the show who said a couple months ago, at most now, why do you guys do this podcast if you hate the product so much? And we kind of went, oh, look, we don't hate the product. We love the talent. We just want better booking. And all of that was true, but it made me think about it for a while and the way that we're presenting. So I say that to preface this. The NWA, or let's just say this. The Smashing Pumpkins went to Mexico and they brought some of the NWA with them.
Yep.
And we could look at that as, well, they kind of just dragged a bunch of folks from the NWA down to Mexico and had some matches, arguably, that weren't that great in the end in Mexico. Yeah. And then they dragged the Southern Six to Australia and had some matches there. Or we could put, the positive light into this and say the world's heavyweight champion stepped out of all the different states that he's been in over the last couple of pay-per-views. He went to Mexico. Oh, he didn't go to Australia, but the world tag team champions and the world junior champion did, and the world women's television champion was there, and we should be excited about this. So I think with that travel, there's the possibility that it could improve. Right. But also, I think maybe to the point of anyone who might be watching this, it might also go the other way.
It's not that, I do sit here and complain, I will gripe, but it's just because I want them to do better.
Yeah, exactly that.
I don't like what they're doing, and I'm, being vocal about it. It's not that I hate the product, because I love those 3 letters. I've been watching the NWA since probably 1985, maybe.
Right.
And it's, and it's various different versions, like I said earlier, that I just want it to be what it once was. And before the pandemic, it seemed like they were on an upward scale, and I think that when of course, before all this left, it looked like as if they were going to be in a small arena prior. And then it just kind of the pandemic happened, and then I just don't think they were able to get their bearings. Obviously, different bookings were happening. All this wasn't agreeing with it, and he took off because he didn't like the direction it was going. So, but now, like you said, I think it is on an upward scale going forward. It seems, at least, especially with the slash tapings. Yeah,
yeah. It's with the Aldous situation. And he was there when I got excited by the NWA again. When I tuned back in, I got excited about Aldous versus Skrull before everything happened.
I think put on a great series, I thought.
Yeah. I got excited by Strictly Business, and and a lot of the stories that were happening out of that time it reminded me of Ricky Morton slapping Ric Flair to the ground over the teeny bopper bras or whatever it was from years ago, the studio wrestling. I was like, this is great. And what was so interesting about those times is you live in a country where you can see, when you were growing up in the 80s, you could watch the NWA far often more than I could. It just wasn't broadcast in my province. Since the Sheik lost Toronto and the Tunnies moved in, and the rest is history. Cornette will actually talk about it on his podcast a lot. That there's 2 big towns, and one of them's Toronto in the tradition, the territory era.
Right.
But I was so drawn in by a product that I couldn't really see very often. I have seen the NWA in person twice in my life. That's it. And I'm this far invested into that memory, that part of my life, that's what I'm hoping the NWA continues to build towards. Bigger shows, bigger venues, but those storylines, that kind of action, like you guys had me since NWA, since the early 1980s. Mm-hmm. Just don't lose me like the way WWF did.
Right. Do you still keep up on any WWF at all?
Only in the sense of shorts and Cornette's podcast. I listen to a lot of podcasts, but and he's so polarizing, but I put in our Discord the other day, like, he's an a-hole, but like he feels kind of like our a-hole, and a lot of the time, and I think he's he's wrong on a lot of things as well. But no, like the shorts that I'll watch will be like the here's what he thinks about Sami Zayn versus whoever. I'll watch those. AEW the same way. I'm interested from a business standpoint about the selling out of Wembley Stadium.
I've been following that since they announced it, just because I want to see if they can actually do it. I haven't AEW, when it first came out, was it 4 years ago? I was really intrigued by it because I was like, okay.
Yeah.
I had been away from wrestling for a couple of years because when I divorced my first wife, I kind of just got too busy and life was happening. I just lost interest. When I met my second wife, her son was into WWE, so I, slowly got back into it. And then the NWA happened. I was like, God damn. Or Billy bought the NWA rather. I was like, God damn. Like, all right. So, I was all about it. And then, damn, I forgot where I was going with this. I hate when I do that. But,
watching the WWE versus,
But the thing with AEW is, it's like, when they first started, I was watching, and I was like, they got a lot of kinks to work out, but it's worth a watch.
Right.
And then the last, I don't know, I think since January, I just probably watched it 3 times, and I didn't watch it for a couple months, and then about 2-3 weeks ago, I turned on just to check it out, and within 10 minutes, I shut it off because I couldn't take it. And it's very similar to Monday Night Raw. I'll watch it for 10 minutes, 20 minutes, and then decide whether I want to stay there for the next 3 hours. And so a lot of what I get on my wrestling between WWF and AEW is by reading the Observer or stuff I see on TikTok or something to that effect.
Yeah, same. And it's really exciting for AEW that they can sell out, I'm going to guess, 80,000 tickets at Wembley Stadium. That's super exciting. They'll never do that again. No. Because Great Britain doesn't have pro wrestling like that on a regular basis. And once that, I'm actually just parroting Cornette now. I just realized, but once you do that once, you're going to get less people the next time. That's not a milestone that they should consider. Have you ever seen the film Moneyball?
No, I've heard of it though. I've never seen it.
So they're a team in the Oakland Athletics that are, they have like, I don't know, $35 million for their budget. And the Yankees, the manager says have like $120 million for their budget. And you're never going to, if he says something about, we try to play ball like the New York Yankees play ball, we're going to lose every single time. And this is why AEW is never going to surpass the WWE. It's not possible.
I think they give too many people creative control, their own creative control on top of it. And they're trying to shock people each and every week. And there's a big announcement each and every week. See who's got a broken arm or dislocated shoulder or broken ankle each and every week through the table spots, cheer shots, and God knows what other spots. How many times? Every time there's a cage match, there's a spot off the top of the cage.
Right. And on top of that, there's too much wrestling on TV now, and they've, I know they're getting rid of the 2 shows, Dark Elevation, I think is the other one that nobody ever watches. Nobody watches Rampage, is my understanding, and they're making another 3-hour show. And I think the fact that they have a Collision, I think it's called, right?
Yep.
And I think the fact that he owns Ring of Honor, you can't sell it. Ought to tell them that there's enough wrestling out there right now. Which again, back to our previous point, if there is another product that does things differently, like you were saying, AEW came in, they were going to do things on a sports-based platform, and now they're just trying to be WWE. I don't want the NWA to try to be like WWE. I want the NWA try to be like a modern day version of the NWA of old. And UWN does that. Sorry, to your previous question, I also watched the UWN because of Jeremy, one of the 3 other Alliance guys.
Yeah.
We talk about the UWN every week, and they've got Championship Wrestling, which used to be Hollywood, and now they have Derby City, and they're kind of have something to do with Memphis as well under their banner. I went, when Jeremy started doing it, great. I want to do something different on the show. Fantastic. That'll be your deal. One day I started watching it, and, I know Championship Wrestling from Hollywood. I know Dave Marquez Productions. Like the NWA had Dave Marquez as a producer. That's my favorite NWA.
I'm going to tell you that I fully 100% agree with that. And I'm going to tell you with him doing the ringside interviews and at the podium and doing the ring introductions and some years, he just had a certain charm about himself that really added to Power.
It's true. Yeah. It's true. He did an interview on Championship Wrestling, I guess, or maybe it was Derby City. Probably Derby City with Zicky Dice a few weeks ago.
Yeah, that was Derby City. Yep.
Right. And he was, he was as usual, like, I'm here with Zicky Dice, and kind of this sort of, a little bit meeker persona that Dave Marquez has that you don't get that he has in social media. Like he's pretty independent and standalone. But like Zicky Dice actually said to him, like, Dave, I'm going to take over this whole joint. When I do, I'm going to get you fired from yet another job. Right? And he had to turn away. He turned his head because you could see he was laughing. But anyway, Dave Marquez is like, I love the UWN because that's what I wish the NWA was right now.
Read about the Northern Wrestling Federation in the book presented by Russellville.com, The Pro Wrestling Vault, Volume 2. Hear the story of Roger Ruffin, the man who trained Carl Anderson, the Monster Abyss, Jordan Clearwater, Chris Harrison, Jillian Hall.
Plus 45 other short stories including Jazz, Bobby Eaton, Kamala, Thunder Rosa, Mario Mancini, Scott Casey, PJ Black, Kerry Morton, Sal Renaro, Jeremiah Plunkett, Colby Carino, Bam Bam Malone, and many others.
Get your book today at Russellville.com. Russellville. It's where wrestling lives.
Hi, this is Bob Smith. You might remember me from my years at Pro Wrestling Illustrated magazine. Well, now I've started a brand new podcast called The Outdated Wrestling Hour. Yes, we're going to take a whimsical look back at the wrestling figures, stars, and trends from years gone by. We're talking 60s, 70s, 80s, 90s, and a whole lot more. There's going to be laughs. There's going to be fun. There's going to be action. You name it. Please tune in for The Outdated Wrestling Hour wherever you get your podcasts.
Great product. The three brands that they have, I think Memphis puts on a really good show. I think Dustin Starr is really great at what he does with booking. Some of the talent there is really, really good. I just interviewed the women's champion over there, Nyx. So,
did you?
Yeah, she's a great lady that will be coming out very shortly. It was a fun interview to get to talk to somebody from the Memphis Wrestling group. And Derby City, since it's been just about a month and a half since it's been around, and I watched that first episode and I was blown away. Like literally I said, this is what professional wrestling is supposed to look like.
Exactly.
And great show.
It looked like Championship Wrestling, presented by Carshield or whatever, in a bigger auditorium.
Yep.
Right. So I loved it too. And the talent that they've got at all three of those cities and those promotions, like K-Tumor in Memphis, which, if you're not watching Memphis, I get it from the production value. It's a very small, strange looking room.
Yeah.
But boy, like you were seeing some serious talent coming out of that place as well.
Yeah. K-Tumor is probably one of the best guys out there. A friend of mine wrestled him in a tryout match there. So under the Gabe Sapolsky seminar that they had there. So he's saying nothing but great things about him. And I'm trying to get him on the program. So hopefully that'll work out. I hope. And, there's just, like I said, man, it's just the production is very strange but then again, Memphis wasn't always known for their great production, no matter what brand it was. So it was very outdated even back in, the 90s. So.
Yeah, but Dustin Starr, he has certainly that flair for it, as you mentioned as well, right? He makes that hair go big, and just the way he talks like a big top, circus announcer. It's perfect for the product he's got. What? It's the gun show. What are you doing here? It'll make you laugh, but I enjoy it, and I love all three of those products.
Yeah, same here.
Don't watch anything else, though.
I've really scaled it down. I do watch MLW. I'm not going to lie. I watch that, too. I'm enjoying that thoroughly. as of late, with the exception of Microman, but that's neither here nor there. He's
I've been told to watch it. Yeah, he's very tiny, right?
Yeah, probably like a foot tall or something. Maybe 2 feet tall. But anyways, yeah. Sorry guys. But other than that, I really stick to a lot of local things as well because it's strictly professional wrestling. When you stay at the local indie level, it's there's a lot of really good products where I'm coming from. I don't know. What about your area?
So Ontario is pretty big as a province, and where I am, there used to be, and we've only been here, I guess about 2 years. My wife and I, we kind of moved here so that we could live in a place where we could afford a home. But there used to be, what is that guy's name? He was one of the Highlanders, Robbie.
I know who you're referring to from WWE, correct?
Yeah. And then he went on Impact, and they showed him on TV in WWF.
He got fired.
You're gone.
Yep.
He owned a promotion in this town that I have yet to find doing work. But so you got to drive. You got to drive to Toronto. But there are some promotions in a town about 2.5 hours drive from here called Port Hope. Kerry Morton's going to be defending the World Junior Championship sometime. I guess it's June. So we're going to go and drive and see that. My wife is into the NWA now, and she was never a wrestling fan. She loves Camille, and she loves the ones who have the serious presence on TV. So we're going to make that trip. It's funny though, because again, Ontario is such a big territory that like up north, like North Bay, if you want to look up where that is, it's way up in northern Ontario. There's an independent promotion there that'll get 500 people to any given show once a month. It is. That's a good size, but because it's so big and nobody tours everywhere, there's a lot of room for independent promoters to bring in talent and grow and try to get their guys recognized on a larger stage.
Yeah. So of course, before we get out of here, I just want to talk about. You mind talking about the Crockett Cup for a little bit?
Yes, my favorite pay-per-view of all time.
2 nights of action, June 3rd and June 4th, and I'm going to go over some of the matches that I have listed here, if you don't mind.
100%. I haven't made my picks yet, so we're doing it live.
All right, there you go.
All right, cool.
Well, I want to talk about EC3 and the Thrillbilly, Silas Mason. To me, why don't you make your pick first?
No, that's not fair. Come on, man.
This is going to be for the national championship. My personal opinion is Thrillbilly is on a tear. When he first came in, and I don't know if I've ever said this on a podcast before, maybe I did. He kind of drove me nuts. I couldn't really get into him. Paul Del Mar, I really enjoyed. Now, Thrillbilly is one of my favorite wrestlers. Okay. Yeah. But I am predicting now he's going to win this national title. I will. I also am going to predict that in the next year, he's going to be the NWA World Champion. So we can talk about that in a later date if you'd like. But
I agree that there is a potential that he becomes NWA World Champion, but not until that movie career based off of his showing as Terry Bam Bam Gordy in the Iron Claw comes out and makes him a bigger name, right?
I'll give you that.
We know what Tyrus is champ because he has a national platform.
Yeah,
I would say Chris Adonis is probably your next national, or excuse me, world's heavyweight champion.
Do you think that's going to happen on Crockett Cup weekend?
So my guess, if I were booking, and that's what I was kind of hoping for, night one they'd fall apart. And, like your world's champion and Chris Adonis don't need to go to the semifinals. They are big enough on their own. One of my favorite bits of modern day Crockett Cup history was when the wild cards formed and went almost the whole distance. I gotta love that. Wouldn't you love to see, it's not going to happen, but wouldn't you love to see Jeremiah Plunkett and Eric Jackson, where everyone just goes, first rounders, they're out, go to the semis? Wouldn't that be great?
I love Plunkett. So
yeah, I love Plunkett too. He's amazing.
Yeah.
And Eric Jackson looks like $1 million. But I would pick EC3 to retain. And I don't think that the Thrillbillies. I don't think EC3's time has been long enough as national champion yet. And if he's just a transitional champion, well, you could have done that with Scion and Thrillbilly. So I don't know.
My guess, and this is just my guess, that they were just putting it on the belt, put the belt on him just to get a little attention on the NWA a little bit, because EC3 is pretty well known. You know what I mean? But I could be completely wrong. So I've been known to be wrong before.
I am wrong more than 50% of the time, but at least I'm bold about it. So let's do it. Let's see what happens.
Let's see. What's the hardcore team war? La Rosa Negra, Samantha Starr, and M95? I guess pretty empowered. I don't care either. Okay, good. All right. I'm glad. And then there's the 3-way tag match. Yeah, I don't care about this one. Sorry. Yeah. Never mind. No. So, anyways, let's go to night 2, and then we'll talk about the tag teams real quick.
Sure.
Ken Page has a match, but the opponent has not been announced at this time. And then let's see. Who do you think is going to go the distance in the Crockett Cup?
I'd have to see the bracket. Do you have it in the...
I don't have it loaded in, but...
Okay. I think I have it on my...
It's very... I don't know, man. This is a very strange...
Yeah, I've got it.
I mean, it's very strange. Are they going to... there's teams like... A team like Kratos and Odinson is a very interesting team, putting them together, two powerhouses. I really love Kratos, and Odinson's really grown on me over the years, that could be a team that can go further than we expect. Of course, who my pick is the Fixers, local guy, in part of that tag team. So I'm kind of I guess you can say a mark for Wrecking Ball. So I always want that guy out there.
Yeah, I think if I were picking to the semis, I'd have, just because given the 4 conferences, for lack of a better term, I'd have La Rebellion as my world tag champs go to the semis.
Okay.
I wouldn't pick them to win. I'd take Latimer and Rhett Titus at the bottom half of that bracket to go to the semis, which has them over the Fixers. It has them over the Savages. But I could easily see the Savages filling that role. If Tyrus and Adonis don't go the distance and collapse, I mean, I don't know. Maybe the Country Gentleman, but it's probably who I would pick for the semis. It's a tough bracket. But you have Craig Odinson, as I like to call them, in that bracket as well. So they'd be a good backup. And then on the bottom side, man, how do the Mortons have I guess because he's world junior champion, right? That's why they have a bye.
Yeah. But that my prediction is just going to fall apart right there. I mean, I think that's pretty clear, but maybe I'm wrong. Wrong.
They're gonna collapse. I would love to see the Heat Seekers go, but I think that it would behoove the NWA to have a AAA tag team, which would be Arez and Toxin go to the semis. So I guess my pick overall to win the whole thing, I'm almost always wrong. I'm going to go kind of take the wild card, pun intended, with Latimer and Titus. A cut above is who I'm going to pick to win the whole thing.
I think that's a really good, to see those two put together. I was very surprised, and I really like that because I think that Latimer's, he's been with the NWA since Billy, has taken it over.
Yeah.
And he hasn't gone anywhere.
No.
And so he's proved his loyalty to the company. So, I mean, why not, right? Rhett Titus is another amazing talent, So I think I really like that idea of them as a tag team.
Yeah, and if you were trying to fill in any way a hole left behind by Nick Aldis, He's in great shape, but yeah, Nick by Nick Aldis. You know, the one faction that has really gathered my attention over the last few years, the only one, was Strictly Business. Like, wouldn't you like to see a faction with Latimer, Camille, Rhett Titus, and I don't know, pick a fourth or fifth if you want to, and have that, you know, that'd be something I could totally get behind.
That was definitely a group that really stuck out. You know what I mean? When, you know, there wasn't a lot sticking out necessarily. That really worked.
It's true. And I felt like we missed Royce Isaacs after he left as well and went to the UWN for a while.
Absolutely did, because I mean, that guy is a great talent. I thought that, you know, he could work very, very well. And the fact that he left, I guess, during the pandemic, we lost a lot of talent during the pandemic. So, yeah, you know, the fact that he was one of them was kind of upsetting as well, because I thought that he would stick around. But, you know, James Storm went to Impact. Sorry. Yeah. And then, you know, Eli Drake is now in WWE. So we lost a lot of really important talent. And I thought that I really enjoyed James Storm and Eli Drake in the NWA at that time period.
Yeah, we lost Zicky Dice.
Zicky Dice, yep.
Just wanted to work, was my understanding, and wasn't going to be able to do that. And whatever else was going on. But, you know, we lost Thunder Rosa, I guess you could arguably say. I know she was back for the Attack and then gone shortly thereafter.
Yeah.
But, you know, and that was understandable so that she could grow. But, yeah, we really did. And with Royce Isaacs, he was always this, like, just this, you know, one of those chicken crap heels, right? Try not to swear on your broadcast.
You're allowed to, by the way. This is
okay. It's not a censored heel.
This is not a censored show.
There you go. One of those guys you could see with that wax mustache, you know, like tying someone to a railroad track. That was Royce Isaacs to me. He was so amazing at that. And I miss Colby Carino.
Yeah.
I know that he didn't go because of the pandemic, but hey, listen, like we often say on the show, the NWA is a AAA ball club where we're going to see guys on their way up and enjoy them while we can. And we're going to see guys at the end of their career on their way down, right? Enjoy them while we can. And that's what it is until the years and a bunch of money for Mr. Corgan or whoever makes it bigger.
We've been surprised, you know, at times. I've been surprised that certain people will show up in the group, and I'm very excited at times, and other times, like Tyrus, was very disappointed, you know. So, you know, it is what it is. But Tyrus has been, I guess he's pulling his weight, I guess you could say.
Yeah. Wow, man. What a polarizing figure, right? I get what his value is, and I think we all do, whether we like it or not. And for those of us who wanted to see the world champion tour about, or, you know, at least be able to last more than 6 minutes without blowing up, he ain't that guy. But he is that guy who has the 12 pounds of gold on his shoulder 5 nights a week on a popular program. I get it.
Yeah. Let's not talk about that program. I don't want to get into politics. And all that stuff.
You know, while I'm sitting here, though, I am kind of rethinking. You know, you could have Tyrus and Adonis win the Crockett Cup and a shot at the World Tag Team titles and win that shortly after losing the 10 pounds of gold on night 2, so that you still have a belt on Fox programming.
Yeah. yeah. It's a way to get, you know, the way to get your name out there. You know, I don't know how much it works for the NWA that he's on there with the belt, but
I don't know either. It upsets me that we don't know.
Yeah.
That data doesn't seem to be available to us.
Yeah, surprisingly. I think that it's Billy, you know, I don't think he just wants us to know. I mean, I guess you could just kind of tell in a way. I mean, if they're selling out a 250-seat room, how about that much?
Yeah, I think that's a really good point.
Yeah.
Who's your pick for the Final Four and the winner of the Crockett Cup, by the way?
The Final Four? Jeez. Well, I want to see the Country Gentlemen. Huge
Great.
fan of theirs. I think they're awesome. AG Kazan, I'm talking to him currently about being a future guest on this program as well. So I will tell you about that as an information comes available.
Fantastic.
Like I said, Rhett Titus and Thomas Latimer is definitely one up there.
Yeah.
Let's see here. Of course, I already said the Fixers because
Sure.
I'm going to be a nerd and because they're my guys.
Yeah.
One of them's from my area. I always pick the guys from my area no matter what I know they're going to lose in the beginning or whatever. However, I don't see them listed here, but I do believe that they are going to be a part of it. But I would really like to see another Northeast team make it out there, and I'm going to just go with the Now.
Oh, that would be amazing.
Yeah, I would love it because they haven't really done a lot with them, I don't think. But I would just love to see them really push them.
Yeah, absolutely. They look like a tag team. They act like a tag team. They do everything right, and they've done it a long time together. So, 100%. If there's a team that I could get behind, make it the Now.
Yeah, absolutely. I'd love to see it.
Yeah.
Well, do you have anything else you want to throw in there tonight, Tim?
You know what? I'm out on the socials. I'm at. It's on the screen at the Alliance Gold. That's also my .com. That's my address, and I'm slowly uploading stuff. More importantly, Jay's site, wrestling.com. Jay's been doing it for 16 years, right? So that's amazing. And on our podcast, if I can pitch, we're going to be giving this this thing away. This is a very rare, hard to find Impact 10 pounds of gold kids playset. Never been opened. We'll be doing our actual Crockett Cup brackets on Twitter, and I'll probably post that later tonight or tomorrow. And it'll just be a short period of time. Then we'll find whoever picks the winner and has the most semis or whatever will win that thing.
Nice. Well, Tim, I want to thank you for being a part of this program, and I'd love to have you back again sometime down the road.
100%. Thanks, Rick. Really appreciate it.
Thank you. And by the way, go check out the other Alliance guys each and every Wednesday at 6 p.m. 6 p.m.
6:05.
6:05 Eastern Time.